Good day, Crime Talk aficionado. A new book about Bryan Kohberger is coming out on June 25th. Is it fact or fiction? More Justin Timberlake news. What exactly was he drinking? And could have got him drunk with just one drink? The prosecutors in the Alec Baldwin case are trying to play hardball with everyone involved. Well, guess what? They struck out today. A man pled guilty for disemboweling his childhood friend, and our dumb criminal of the day. Let's talk about it.
All right, lawyer.
Good day, everyone. My name is Scott Reich, and this is Crime Talk. Thanks for joining us. You know the drill. Subscribe if you haven't, like if you do, leave me a comment below, hit that little bell in the corner so that you get notifications of when we go live or put up new content. And remember, you can check us out on any of your favorite podcasting apps as well. So it's been a busy week. Thank goodness Frank is back. The hardest working man in show business needed a little bit of a break, needed that vacation, but now he's back with us again, and hopefully he'll never leave again. Anyway, let's go ahead and open the record for June 21st, 2024. And first on the docket, Kohberger, a book about Bryan Kohberger. Fact or fiction? A new book alleges that Bryan Kohberger had but just one single target the night that he allegedly murdered 4 Idaho college students, and that his family, well, they were suspicious of him even before his arrest. That's right. So if you haven't been following us, you know Bryan Kohberger was not on a random killing spree, but intended to target only Madison Mogen when he entered the Moscow house in November of 2022. Now, this is according to journalist Howard Blum. Now, this is a book that he has coming out, When the Night Comes Falling. Now, don't have a whole lot of information, but I'm assuming he thinks he has some sort of inside scoop, a contact with the police department, because frankly, well, this isn't new news, so to speak. It's just that it's coming out right before the trial. And can you imagine a book coming out about a high-profile case and all of a sudden the jurors, oh my gosh, maybe the judge could ban the book so that it doesn't provide misinformation to the jury, as the prosecutors had previously alleged, as you may recall, by the defense when they were doing their survey. So when you have a high-profile case, ladies and gentlemen, it doesn't matter. People are going to write information. The significant thing about this case is going to be, where did Mr. Blum get his information from? Obviously, some sort of inside scoop in the police department. But if they're not willing to speak on the record, you got to be very careful about what is being said. All right? Anyway, so Mr. Blum is stating that officials, so I'm assuming somebody in the police department, believe that Bryan Kohberger was after Mogen because he passed the rooms of the 2 surviving roommates before starting the killing spree that obviously resulted in the death of 4 college students. If he was just on a killing spree, it would have been completely natural, almost instinctive, to go to one of those doors, according to the author. And instead, he goes up this narrow staircase and he turns directly into the middle room. And I think Maddie was his target. That's Blum's theory. Anyway, Blum also writes of Kohberger's family members being concerned about his behavior prior to his arrest. Now, Kohberger's father, Michael, was reportedly on edge when he picked up the alleged killer from the school after the murders. And apparently, Michael, the dad, has been reading the headlines. He knows that 4 students were killed 12 miles from where his son resided there in Washington State. And he knows what a troubled son that he apparently has. Made him a little suspicious, a little concerned. Anyway, Blum claims one of Kohberger's own 2 sisters approached the dad to voice suspicion about her brother, but that her father ignored her concerns. He just simply can't confront it, the author alleges, referring to Kohberger's dad. Anyway, there have been sources that apparently have told Blum that the 2 surviving roommates, Dylan Mortensen and Bethany Funk, were using their cell phones to communicate during and after the murders. When the Night Comes Calling, a requiem for the Idaho student murders, well, it comes out on June 25th. I'll see about picking up a copy and seeing if it's just speculation or if it is in fact grounded in facts. But the reality of it is this is not a new theory, just somebody that's obviously going to write a book and hopefully sell lots of copies. I wonder what the prosecution will have to say. We'll be tainting the jury. All right, ladies and gentlemen, next on the docket, Justin Timberlake. And frankly, I would much rather talk about Justin Timberlake than, I don't know, that Gypsy Rose lady. Horrible human being, all right? But Justin Timberlake, good guy, made a mistake. He's already apologized on social media. The first DUI can happen to anyone. We've talked about this. And if you watched our live Tuesday, we walked you through the anatomy of a DUI, how it went down. I thought it was pretty funny at spots as well. But the reality of it is Justin Timberlake is not going to go to jail. He's going to plead guilty to it, and life is going to go on. He's going to get a standard treatment of any first DUI. But the driving issue now is we know that he said he had one drink. Well, was there one drink that could have got Justin Timberlake drunk? And I would submit, yes, there was, because we know that he downed a stiff $21 cocktail made famous by the fictitious British spy James Bond before his arrest for allegedly drunk driving in the Hamptons earlier this week. It is reported that Justin Timberlake ordered a Vesper Martini from the menu from the American Hotel in Sag Harbor on Tuesday, who described the recipe as all alcohol. Apparently no mixers. The Vesper Martini contains Grey Goose vodka, some gin, some wine, and a thick twist of lemon rind. Now, apparently this drink is not for the faint of heart, as the recipe usually calls for a whopping 4 ounces of liquor. And it's safe to say that the level of alcohol in this martini is equivalent to a double of just about any other cocktail. So as you may recall, Justin Timberlake told police that he had just one martini after he was pulled over for going through that stop sign. Now, he did refuse to take the breathalyzer. I'm all with you there, Justin. I'm with you, buddy. Anyway, but he did fail to take the voluntary roadside maneuvers, the field sobriety tests. We talked about that earlier in the week. Never, ever, ever, ever take those tests. They're voluntary. They're not there to help you. They're there to convict you. All right? Anyway, the drink of choice for the night apparently gained popularity when it appeared in Ian Fleming's 1953 debut, Casino Royale. Now, the British spy called back a waiter after asking that a standard dry martini and tweaked his order. James Bond then gives the order of 3 measures of Gordon's, 1 of vodka, half a measure of Quina Liette. Shake it very well until it's ice cold, and then add a large thin slice of lemon peel. Got it? Bond said in the novel. Later in the story, though, Bond would name the drink after Vesper Lind, a beautiful and brilliant fellow operative he falls in love with, but is forced to betray him and ultimately takes her own life for that. Anyway, the drink grew quite popular after the novel was released, but after the 2006 adaptation starring Daniel Craig as Bond and Eva Green as Vesper, it became a staple on cocktail menus across the country. Now, as you may recall, we talked about it. Some people said that Timberlake was wasted at the American Hotel before the stop by the police, but apparently he thought that he was okay to drive. Now, after being busted by the police who didn't recognize him, Mr. Timberlake apparently said this is going to ruin the tour under his breath before being handcuffed. As you may recall, he's in the midst of a world tour due to perform at Madison Square Garden in Manhattan at the end of June. Now, Mr. Timberlake has pled not guilty, and we will give him that presumption of innocence. After all, they have no blood result, do they, ladies and gentlemen? Those bloodshot, watery eyes could have been caused by many things. Perhaps people smoking in the same room. Maybe he was just tired. Maybe he was ill. All kinds of excuses. At least there's no test result that they can say he was drunk. Right, ladies and gentlemen? I'm with you all the way on this one, Justin. Free Justin Timberlake. Next, a little Alec Baldwin update, all right? The prosecution is playing hardball in this case. They played hardball with the armorer as well, Ms. Gutierrez-Reed. And now the prosecutor wanted to have their cake and eat it too. Prosecute Ms. Gutierrez-Reed, prosecute Alec Baldwin, convict Ms. Gutierrez-Reed because probably she didn't want to agree to testify against Alec Baldwin. Well, she's been convicted. She's serving an 18-month prison sentence. Now the prosecutor says, we want to bring you in to testify. No, Gutierrez says through her attorneys, I have a Fifth Amendment right against self-incrimination because, as you may recall, you, Mr. Prosecutor, convicted her. And that Fifth Amendment right continues through the appellate process. So what does the prosecutor do? Say, well, I want my cake and eat it too. I am going to ask the court to grant her immunity. So once Gutierrez says, I want to plead the Fifth, the prosecutor says, Judge, I have a grant of immunity. Please grant it to Ms. Gutierrez Reed. Ms. Reed, now answer my questions. If she refused, guess what? She could be held in contempt. Some judges do it for, like 6 months for refusing to testify at all. Some judges do it 6 months per question that they refuse to testify to once they're granted immunity. But guess what? It worked out for both Miss Gutierrez Reed and Alec Baldwin today. Now, there was a hearing as it relates to the Alec Baldwin involuntary manslaughter trial that is scheduled to begin next month for the 2021 shooting of the Rust cinematographer Helena Hutchins. Now, the judge ruled today, guess what? That the armorer, who's already been convicted, Hannah Gutierrez Reed, does not have to testify at Alec Baldwin's trial. Clearly, the prosecution wanted that quite badly. So Judge Summers rejected the prosecution's motion to have the Rust armorer be a witness with immunity in the July 9th trial. The judge said, I haven't heard anything that she might testify to that someone else could not testify to. And the judge also noted that the special prosecutors and defense attorneys said that I'm not going to do a mini trial within a trial, the judge noted. And the prosecutor's contention that they could hold the currently incarcerated Gutierrez Reed in contempt if she refused to answer the questions on the stand. The judge was like, we're not going to deal with it. It's already going to be a circus. We're not going to deal with it. Like I said, Gutierrez Reed was already sentenced to 18 months in a New Mexico state prison on April 15th after she was found guilty of involuntary manslaughter on March 6th. Like I said, Baldwin's trial begins in a couple of weeks, and it is expected to last about 2 weeks. And guess what? Alec Baldwin will have to be there. Anyway, the argument that was made that the jury should hear all of the information Miss Gutierrez Reed has regarding Mr. Baldwin, both exculpatory, that helps Mr. Baldwin, and inculpatory, that which hurts him, according to the prosecutors. Now, they also argued that the attorneys for both sides should be permitted to fully cross-examine Ms. Gutierrez Reed. Well, she doesn't want to be cooperative in this case, and she doesn't want to answer the questions, her attorney told the court today. Apparently, it came up in some attempted pretrial interviews with Ms. Gutierrez Reed, who repeatedly asserted her Fifth Amendment privilege when the prosecutors tried to interview her for trial preparation. So guess what? No, they cannot use it. So anyway, the judge said she's using her sound decision to avoid mini trials within a trial and denied the state's motion. There does exist a possibility the prosecution will call Ms. Gutierrez Reed and question her on matters not covered by the Fifth Amendment privilege. In truth, that wouldn't really be much in this case besides a sideshow at this point. Now, that's good for Ms. Gutierrez Reed. Prosecutor, you can't have it both ways. If you wanted her to testify against Alec Baldwin, you should have made her a smoking deal, but you played hardball all the time. So now she's saying, screw you. I like the fact that her attorney said, we're not going to play ball with you. She's been sentenced. If Alec Baldwin is convicted, he, I believe, will go to prison because he's the man in charge. He's the man that pulled the trigger. You can't send the armorer to prison and not send the guy that actually pulled the trigger in doing so. Anyway, there was some other things that took place at the hearing. The defense lawyer for Alec Baldwin unsuccessfully argued that the indictment against Mr. Baldwin should be tossed out for failure to state an offense. Now, under New Mexico law, the state must establish that the defendant was subjectively aware of the substantial risk that his or her actions could cause harm to another person. Now, it is a subjective standard. The state, and I think that this will show that this has abjured any ability to show that Mr. Baldwin had a subjective awareness of the risk of the firearm, in this case, is loaded with live ammunition. Without that essential piece of evidence, the state cannot establish the element of the offense, Mr. Baldwin's attorneys argued. Well, the judge didn't buy the defense position at all. As an actor, he is not supposed to be pointing a gun at someone, the judge noted. The judge also noted he pulled the trigger when he was pointing a gun that he didn't need to point. So, what Mr. Bash, the attorney for Alec Baldwin, is telling the court, which is absolutely false, unless this gun has a live round in it, it is completely harmless. Well, the special prosecutor argued that position, and this gun can only kill someone if it's got ammunition in it, she added, citing the 1993 on-the-set death of Brandon Lee on The Crow. Absolutely false, and Mr. Baldwin knew that was to be false. We have an extraordinary amount of circumstantial evidence that goes directly to this point. The prosecutors went on to say, noting that Baldwin was aware of the other actors on Rust fired their guns into the ground to make sure that they were safe after others' so-called accidental discharges occurred during the production back in October of 2021. Now, moving briskly through a packed day of motions hearing, the judge ruled to deny the defense motion that the state's indictment had not stated an actual criminal offense. The court finds that, first of all, there does exist disputed facts before the court that are not capable of dismissal as a matter of law. The judge correctly noted that, all right? The disputed facts are probably before the jury, that's why we have questions of fact for the jury to decide. Who's telling the truth? Who ran the red light? Who knew the gun was dangerous? That's what the juries decide. Anyways, Judge Summers added, telling the defense that they had not met their burden on the motion. Not surprisingly, didn't think it had a chance in hell of being granted. Now, the court will return to address some other defense motions to once again have the case dismissed. Now, earlier, the judge also denied the defense motion to exclude certain witnesses in this matter. The hearing is taking most of the day and still ongoing at the time of this video being made. And next, a scare actor. That's right, somebody who works in like haunted houses. Yeah, he pled guilty. And he's going to prison for disemboweling his best friend. So a haunted house scare actor is facing life in prison for maliciously killing a friend he'd known since high school who stayed with him on his way to Alabama to visit his girlfriend. So Brandon Christopher Risner pled guilty to stabbing and disemboweling his longtime friend Aaron William Davis back on November 11th of 2022. Now, Davis and Risner were close friends. They went to the same high school and attended the same church. Then on November 11th, 2022, Davis stayed overnight with Risner on his way to Alabama to visit his girlfriend. When Davis didn't arrive at his destination, the Davis family contacted the police. They discovered Davis's abandoned blue Toyota Prius in a ditch behind a levee at a local park, which led them to Risner's home. Risner had assaulted Davis with a blade-like object multiple times to the head, chest, torso, and extremities, causing disfigurement and ultimately Davis's death. Now, afterward, when attempting to hide the body, it is alleged that Risner lost a piece of the victim's small intestine, which in fact has never been recovered. Now, Risner removed the body of Davis from one location off of Collinwood Road to another off of Turin Drive, where he buried the said person in an unmarked grave, according to the criminal complaint. Now, once the body was removed, the prosecutor said that Mr. Risner went to Walmart to purchase cleaning supplies to clean bloodstains from a mattress, carpet, and rug in the home, as well as blood splatter from the ceiling of an upstairs bedroom. Now, Risner then attempted to submerge Davis's car into the creek behind the levee about 2.5 miles away from his home. Now, prosecutors and investigators later found Davis's body buried under 6 to 12 inches of dirt in a 6 to 8 foot hole left by a large uprooted tree, according to the police. Now, court records show the right before Davis was killed, he went to a bar with Risner and became inebriated after consuming a lot of drinks that the defendant had ordered him. They returned to Risner's house, and David slept in the upstairs guest bedroom. Risner has pled guilty to 12 charges total, including malice murder, 2 counts of felony murder, 2 counts of aggravated assault, aggravated battery, concealing the death of another, abandonment of a dead body, and theft by taking, as well as a final misdemeanor, removal of body parts. That must have been for that whole intestine thing, right? Removing body parts from a scene and tampering with evidence. Oh, and a little obstruction of justice. Now, a judge will determine whether Risner will face life in prison with or without parole at his sentencing on July 18th of 2024. I'm voting for life without parole. Killing a lifelong friend for whatever reason after getting him drunk, stabbing, mutilating, disemboweling, burying, trying to conceal. I'm going to say that's the epitome of first-degree murder. Consciousness of guilt. Send him away forever. And finally, our dumb criminal of the day. If there's one thing dumb criminals need to learn is don't go into other people's homes without permission. All right? Now, if people were actually allowed to have weapons in Chicago, this man would be dead. All he got was a frying pan instead. So a Chicago man says he defended himself in a move that looked like something out of a comedy, chasing off the guy who allegedly broke into his house with a frying pan. Jason Williams was a resident of the city's Logan Square neighborhood, and he says that a security app alerted him to the alleged intruder's presence while he was on his way home from work Thursday. Well, guess what? When he arrived at his house, Jason explained he grabbed the first weapon that he could. Not a gun, apparently. No, a frying pan. And he says the unwelcome guest came down the stairs and a confrontation was on. Now, the surveillance cam, take a look at this, captured the whole chase. And the video picks up the incident outside. And yep, check it out. There he is, swinging the pan wildly at the dude as he chases him off the porch. The man makes for a run for it around the back, but later has to come back to the front, and Jason gets a couple more good whacks at him before he can open the gate and take off, which, of course, the police arrive, get him, and now he's going to go to jail/prison and have to explain to everybody that he got beat up with a dude with a frying pan. Now, old Jason, if he had had a gun, if he had lived in a city that actually respected people's constitutional rights to defend themselves and their home, well, this guy would be dead. But he's not. He just got a little embarrassed. But either way, man, you are a dumb criminal of the day. Getting beat up by a frying pan, that is pathetic. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that's all we have for you today. Hope you enjoyed the show. Hope you enjoyed the week. I hope you have a great weekend, and we will see you next week. And remember, yes, the Constitution matters.